Y'all, I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes falling in love is one of the most unproductive things that you can be doing with your time. Now, I'm not saying this from like in a place of like avoidancy and all this other type of shit, but I mean like from a genuine place. Sometimes it's better off if you focused on yourself, if you loved yourself, because you have this tendency of getting into relationships with people and not knowing yourself. And since you don't know yourself before you get into the relationship, you typically lose yourself because you don't know what you will and will not tolerate, what is and is not a boundary, and what isn't is not okay for your life. You just put up with too much because you haven't had enough time to yourself to actually know what you are and aren't up on. Like if I was to look at my life, right? I had this tendency where as soon as I would get into relationships, I would stop doing all the shit I gave a about. I would stop my passions. I would stop working out as much. I would stop doing these things. And I would start pouring so much energy into the people that I was talking to that I would start losing myself, and then those people would leave because I was no longer myself. Now, granted, it does say something about the people, right? If they can't, hold you down during the moments where you do lose yourself in order for you to get back together, that says a lot about the strength of the connection itself, right? But I was noticing and I was starting to take accountability for things like, if I loved myself a little bit better and if I prioritized myself a little bit more, maybe I wouldn't have even have been in certain situations to necessarily begin with, So, see, now I'm the type of I low-key get like lonely. Like I don't like having to be alone, but I've been alone so much that I've learned how to craft it and cultivate it to work for me. A lot of people run from being alone and solitude and silence because they haven't figured out what to do during those times. I just started filling my time with more content, more writing, more self-improvement, more healing, more reading, really pouring into myself. I went through a whole season where I really didn't date. Like, I went through celibacy journeys, like, normally, right? Now, you can also say that was because, the lack of access to certain types of women. But I don't even think it was a lack of access because I think I was always an attractive person. I just think it wasn't in my spirit. It was never in my spirit to just be a HOE, in other words. So I did go through very long periods where I just didn't talk to anybody, and that like made people start looking at me different, and I started getting treated a little bit different because especially when you're a young boy and you're like I don't want to date right now, I want to make a million. People start calling you gay and all this other type of stuff. They start hitting at your masculinity, but it's like my attention right now isn't on necessarily finding love as it is loving myself and making myself happy. Granted, crazy enough, once I actually started doing that, and I really gave myself to my craft and my hobbies and my passions and my mental health and my perspective, and I kind of started living out what is like more confidence. I attracted this beautiful ass girlfriend I have now. Her loving ass, her appreciative ass, like everything about her, she's just like, she's on it. You feel me? Like right now, she got her tripod set up at the front of my car and she's recording videos outside the car. I attracted a relationship where we can do some of the same things, we can enjoy our time together and actually build together, but that came from a moment of solitude, a very long time of solitude, years of solitude, of being by myself and building myself to even get to this point, where my woman could feel safe enough to, join me on my endeavors, take my advice on certain things and stuff like that. And that took me really cultivating myself and learning how to lead myself first. I think a lot of us, we be trying to lead our woman and lead other people. And even for my queens watching the videos, we be trying to allow other people to lead you guys. But it all comes down to being able to lead yourself first, regardless of gender. You got to be able to trust yourself. Know when you need to put boundaries. What is and isn't a good look for you. What is and isn't a good route for you. And then actively trust that instinct and go after those things and or have those boundaries, right? Don't be one of those people who be like, oh yeah, this is my boundary. Then the moment the do it, you take them back or you like justify it and there's no consequences. Like, no, once you say you don't like some you really don't like some you remove yourself from it. Now, I'm not telling you to completely ignore relationships and disregard them, right? Because at a certain point in your journey, at a certain point in your life, you need to get another relationship. At a certain point in your life, you need to experience what a healthy love feels like. That's granny. But you need a period to yourself in order to regulate your emotion. And I think a lot of this, at least for me, it does come down to like traditional values and a little bit of religious trauma and stuff like that, right? Because they be at a lot of the people before us, they be making it seem like you gotta be in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, you're not whole. Which to a certain extent, I could see where that could be true, right? Because it's the masculine and feminine balance. But when you overly force that headspace, and you don't allow people to live and grow at their own pace, we force people to get into the relationship space before they're actually ready and they're done balancing and developing that area within themselves. So we start getting into these relationships and we aren't necessarily ready for them, but we think that relationships make us when they really don't. We make ourselves. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow. Like, I got into this headspace of thinking like a woman can come into my life, or anybody can, well, a woman, but somebody can come into my life and take the weight off my shoulders, make me not have to feel what I feel. In other words, take the emotional responsibility off my plate. And that's not true. Every relationship that I got in that I thought that was going to happen, or they had that power, it didn't work, because that's not their responsibility. Truthfully speaking, it's our responsibility to regulate ourselves, and they're just supposed to be there as support, as help, because they're not us and they don't make us. It's us that has to do the inner work. It's us that has to put our best foot forward regardless of our circumstances and the things happening around us. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, we need to start booking these damn flights. We need to start going, doing the that we want to. We need to start learning ourselves. Like, man, like, how many times I done got on calls with women, and during the session I'm asking them, like, well, do you even know what loving yourself is? What does that mean? And the majority of them be like, that's funny. Like, I really don't know. They'd be like, I hear it everywhere. It's so taboo, but I don't even really know what that means. And I think I said this in another video of mine. I'm not sure, but I'll recap it. Loving yourself is prioritizing yourself. Asking yourself, what do you need in the moment? What are you feeling? What is your psyche and your intuition telling you need to do? And telling you need to make happen in order for you to feel another sense of ease or get to that next level. So sometimes loving yourself is, if you know that doing said activity, like for me, going hiking, that takes a lot of, anxiety, and it takes a lot of pressure off of me. Just simply going for a walk sometimes, going outside in nature. If I'm feeling a whole lot of anxiety and, I'm feeling depressed and everything like that, and exhibiting me loving myself would be like, hey, what do you feel right now? Okay, you feel kind of heartache-ish, you don't feel too good. Well, I know that when you do X thing, it typically takes you out of that energy. So even though you may not feel like going on that walk, even though I may not feel like going on this hike right now, I'm about to go, because I know my body is telling me that I need more time in nature. So I'm going to love myself and dedicate time expeditiously to get in that damn nature. That's loving yourself, truly nurturing yourself and pouring back into your cup, because if you don't pour into your cup, nobody will. Nobody's going to force you to love yourself. Even the people that, you love and claim they love you, deep down, they are not going to love you beyond the parameters that you're capable of loving yourself. So the more inner work that you do and the more self-aware that you become on your own journey and who you are, not only are you going to manifest better people in your life, but you're going to be able to love them better. You're going to be able to show up for them better, because you actually took enough time to show up for yourself. So you kind of know the routes and the things that could possibly, help. And, you just bring so much more awareness to yourself in relationships, and you become a true blessing to your next partner. All the healing and that you're doing right now, even though the bummy ass in the past and take, heed to it and acknowledge it, does not mean that the next person is going to have that same energy. I saw it happen right in front of my eyes. So, I mean, you just got to love your life and know that God can change things. And life isn't always, stagnating. And it isn't always this hard, daunting thing. Life can get very fun if you allow it to. But even within the fun, you have to have a certain level of discipline and consistency, right? And I believe once you're disciplined with anything purpose aligned, it's only a matter of time till it hits because it's in your purpose. Usually when you're dealing with things like purpose, all it's requiring from you is consistency, because it was going to work regardless, because it was destined, it was a card that was meant to be played in your life. So, I hope these videos help. I hope these things kind of open your perspective up to the period that you're in. If you're by yourself right now, it's okay. If you just got heartbroken, if you're letting go, if you're still healing and everything, that's okay. That's just part of the process. And the quicker that you give yourself grace and allow yourself to just go through the motion, go through the process, the sooner you'll be able to see the other side and get yourself out of it. Like, man, I'm trying to tell y'all, life is beautiful. There's a lot to life that y'all can experience, and there's a lot to life that I'm yet to experience and I'm gonna experience. But you have to open yourself up frequently and energetically in order to even experience those things. And the quickest way, and I mean the quickest way, for you to expedite all the work, the shadow work, and really get to where you're trying to get to, is by simply isolating, embracing your solitude. And if God isolated you, if God put you by yourself, not your ego, because some of you guys would just cut people off and all this. If God isolated you and put you by yourself, embrace it. Because the blessings and the beautiful that's going to come from the other side of it, man, it's out of this world. It's out of this world.